I was hemorrhaging heavily on the delivery bed, on the verge of death. Outside the delivery room, there was only one bag of life-saving Rh-negative blood. The nurse burst through the door, her voice tearing through the air. "Mr. Ethan, your wife is in critical condition." However, my mother-in-law clung tightly to my husband's hand, screaming, "Ignore her. Save Vivian first." Ethan, the husband I had loved for 7 years, closed his eyes at that moment. Trembling, he signed the blood transfusion consent form for his first love, Vivian. Later, he learned that the wife he had personally abandoned, his loyal companion through hardships, was the sole heir to the GU group, hidden for over 20 years. The first love he protected with his life was a master con artist who toyed with him effortlessly. Even more absurd was the life-saving favor he had obsessed over for 10 years. It was a play I had funded and directed for him. The excruciating pain in my abdomen felt as if it was tearing my entire body apart. Cold sweat soaked my hair, strands sticking to my pale face. The cervix is dilated to 9 centimeters. I can see the head. Push. The doctor's voice came from afar, calm and devoid of any warmth. My name is Claire. I was lying on the delivery bed, giving birth to the child of the man I had loved for 7 years. I gritted my molars and mustered my last ounce of strength. Ethan was just outside the door. This was our first child. He said he had already chosen the name, Lily. He said it was the crystallization of our love. I once truly believed that. But in the next second, everything went black before my eyes, and the metallic taste of blood surged up my throat. Oh no. The patient is hemorrhaging. Quick. Hemostatic forceps. Blood bank emergency. The patient has Rh-negative blood. The entire hospital has only one bag of reserve blood. My consciousness was rapidly fading, and the sounds around me grew increasingly indistinct. The delivery room door was suddenly pushed open. The young nurse's voice, laced with sobs, shattered the dead silence of the corridor. "Mr. Ethan. Your wife is experiencing postpartum hemorrhage and urgently needs a blood transfusion." At the end of the corridor, Ethan was holding his phone, his face as pale as a ghost. From the phone, a woman's sharp cries came piercing through. "Ethan. Sister Vivian was in a car accident. She also has panda blood. The doctor says if she doesn't get a transfusion soon." Ethan froze in place, as if struck by lightning. My mother-in-law shoved the nurse aside and seized the conversation. "What? Vivian needs blood too? How is she?" The nurse was on the verge of tears. "Mr. Ethan, our hospital's Rh-negative blood stock has only one bag, which you previously prepared for Miss Claire, and now we must save Vivian." My mother-in-law's scream nearly lifted the hospital's roof. She clung desperately to Ethan's arm, her nails digging deep into his flesh. "Son. Have you forgotten? 10 years ago, Vivian developed her chronic illness saving you. Your life was given by her. Now she needs you, you can't be an ungrateful wretch." The surrounding family members watching the spectacle began whispering among themselves. TSK, the legitimate wife and the first love competing for life-saving blood. This plot is really intense. Is there even a choice? The one inside is giving birth to his child. It could be one corpse, 2 lives. You can't say that. A life-saving grace is greater than heaven. It's a tough choice. Another nurse came running from the emergency department, holding 2 documents. "Mr. Ethan. It's urgent. This is Mrs. Claire's critical condition notice, and this is Ms. Vivian's blood transfusion consent form. You must decide immediately." 2 thin sheets of paper, one was my life, the other was Vivian's. Ethan's hand holding the pen shook uncontrollably. On the left was the wife who had carried his child for 10 months, struggling at death's door. On the right was the first love he had obsessed over for 10 years, haunting his dreams every night. "Ethan. Snap out of it." My mother-in-law's voice was like a poison needle. "She's just a woman. If she dies, you can remarry. If Vivian is gone, your conscience will haunt you for life." Ethan slowly closed his eyes. In his mind was Vivian's pale and fragile face, and her weak voice during illnesses, "Ethan, in this life, your words are enough for me." He suddenly opened his eyes, the scarlet depths filled only with resolve. He snatched the pen. On the right document, he signed his name in bold strokes, "Ethan." The moment the pen tip landed, the machine monitoring my vital signs emitted a piercing long beep. Beep. I didn't die. The doctors dragged me back from the brink of death, my body feeling as if it had been dismantled and haphazardly reassembled, every inch of bone screaming in pain. I opened my eyes to the stark white ceiling of the ICU, my throat burning like fire. "Where is my daughter?" The nurse beside me averted her gaze, not daring to look at me. The child suffered severe hypoxia at birth." My heart sank inch by inch. I couldn't hear the nurse's following words. My gaze pierced through her, through the cold glass window, landing at the end of the corridor. Ethan, my husband in name, was tightly embracing another woman. He cried like a child who had lost his favorite toy, his body shaking like a leaf in the autumn wind. In his arms, Vivian, dressed in a clean hospital gown, weakly patted his back. "Ethan, it's not your fault." Her voice was so soft it could wring out water. "Don't blame yourself. Sister Claire, she's always magnanimous, she'll understand." "Understand?" I tugged at the corner of my mouth but found I lacked even the strength to smile. I lay in the ICU for a full 3 days. The adjacent room was Vivian's VIP suite. Ethan stayed by her side without leaving, peeling apples, feeding her soup, attentive like a model boyfriend. My mother-in-law brewed the most nourishing black chicken soup, blowing each spoonful cool before feeding it to Vivian's mouth. "Good child, drink some to nourish yourself. You've suffered greatly this time." Vivian demurred in flattered surprise. "Auntie, how can I accept this? Sister Claire just gave birth, she needs nourishment more." "Don't mention that, Jinx." My mother-in-law lowered her voice, but each word pierced my ears like a needle. "She's cursed her own daughter and now wants to curse you. Don't worry, with Auntie here, Ethan will take good care of you from now on." In the dead of night, Ethan's suppressed promise came from next door, "Don't worry, I'll handle things with Claire. She's not unreasonable. She'll understand." I closed my eyes and smiled. So in his heart, I, Claire, was a living bodhisattva who would willingly sacrifice her own life and her biological daughter's for his life-saving benefactor. 7 years ago, Ethan and I met at a business matchmaking event. He was handsome and steady, a mid-level manager at a moderately sized pharmaceutical company with a promising future. As for me, Claire, I was just a junior employee at an ordinary company. That was the identity I told him. I concealed the fact that I was the sole heir to the Goo Group, like a naive gambler, just wanting to test whether this man loved me for who I was or for my money. In the 7 years after marriage, we lived the most standard urban couple life. Strict AA system. Mortgage split half and half, living expenses each borne separately. He never suspected anything. Behind my bank card that only received 20,000 yuan in salary each month were billions in assets capable of shaking the entire financial world. In those 7 years, he was good to me, considerate and gentle, a model husband in everyone's eyes. I once thought I had won the bet, until after I got pregnant. I myself have rare Rh-negative blood. Fearing accidents, I had long contacted the family-controlled private hospital to store sufficient reserve blood in my name. But just 1 month before delivery, this foolproof safeguard was cancelled by Ethan in my name. He said the public hospital's obstetrics department was the best in the city, and he would arrange everything else. Now I understand he wasn't doing it for me. He was doing it for Vivian. Because this hospital was Vivian's home where she had stayed for 10 years. On the 3rd day, I insisted on being discharged despite the doctor's repeated warnings. Ethan chased me to the ward entrance carrying a bowl of cold porridge. His eyes were dark and puffy, his face unshaven and gaunt. "Claire, you're still weak. Stay 1 more day." I'm sorry." I didn't look at him or the kanji. Supporting my body that felt like it was falling apart, I expressionlessly yanked out the 4 tube from the back of my hand. The needle brought out a string of glaring blood beads. What are you doing? He exclaimed, trying to hold me down. I used all my strength to shove him away harshly. Dressed in thin hospital clothes, I walked step by step out of this hell that had cost me everything. He followed behind, incessantly calling my name. Claire, listen to me. The situation was urgent. Vivian, I turned a deaf ear. Back at the home where we had lived together for 7 years, I went straight into the bedroom, from the deepest part of the bedside pillow, and took out the waterproof sealed bag I had hidden for 7 years. Ethan followed in, seeing what was in my hand, bewildered. What is this? In front of him, I tore open the sealed bag. I took out the slightly yellowed will. Then, page by page, in front of the man I thought was my love, I tore it to shreds. The paper scraps fluttered down like a belated funeral. An expired will. My voice was eerily calm. He was stunned, bending down to pick it up. I stepped on the pile of fragments, grinding them harshly with my soul. It states, Claire, in the event of misfortune, all my assets, including 3 wholly owned subsidiaries, 2 top overseas properties, and 30% of the GU Group's shares, are to be inherited entirely by my husband Ethan. Ethan's face instantly drained of color. His lips trembled, unable to utter a word. You're from the GU. I interrupted him, my toe grinding over the scraps inscribed with billions in wealth. The moment you signed to abandon me, this will, along with my last bit of affection for you, became void. In the new will I drafted, the sole beneficiary of all my assets is the daughter you just abandoned. I looked at his face twisted in shock and fear, feeling no satisfaction in revenge, only endless sorrow. By the way, Ethan. I leaned close to him, saying word by word, the doctor said my daughter died from asphyxiation due to severe hypoxia at birth. Do you know? If that bag of blood had been given to me, she could have survived. Thud. Ethan's knees buckled, and he knelt straight on the ground. Like a beaten dog, he clung desperately to my pant leg, tears and snot smeared across his face. Claire, I was wrong. I really was wrong. Forgive me, please give me another chance. I looked coldly at his pathetic face. Chance? When I was on the brink of life and death on the delivery bed, did he give me a chance? When my daughter was struggling on the edge of asphyxiation, did he give her a chance? Ethan, you weren't wrong. I calmly withdrew my leg. You just made a choice. You chose your first love and abandoned your wife and child. That's your right. He shook his head frantically like a rattle drum. No. I didn't abandon you. I just thought you were stronger than her, that you'd be fine. You thought? I laughed as if hearing the biggest joke. The cost of your thought is that my daughter didn't even get a chance to see this world. I picked up my phone and dialed my assistant. Within half an hour, I want to see the divorce agreement and the top legal team here. Also, notify them. In the name of the GU Group, freeze all associated accounts under Ethan and all members of the Shin family. Ethan froze, as if paused. You want to divorce me? Claire. Don't go too far. A scream came from the door. My mother-in-law rushed in clawing and scratching, followed by several Shin family relatives who loved watching drama. You venomous woman. My mother-in-law pointed at my nose, spittle flying. Our Ethan just saved Vivian, didn't he? Vivian is his life-saving benefactor. What right do you have to throw a tantrum here? She raised her hand to slap my face. I dodged sideways, she missed, nearly falling flat on her face. A human life, in your mouth, becomes a tantrum? My gaze was as cold as a scalpel. That was my daughter's life. My mother-in-law spat a thick glob on the ground. Pa. Just a girl child. Gone is gone, you're young, your belly can still produce. If Vivian had any mishap, Ethan would live in guilt for life. Do you understand or not? The aunt beside chimed in sarcastically. Exactly, Claire, as a woman, you need to be magnanimous. Look, aren't you standing here fine now? Vivian is still lying in the hospital. What's wrong with your husband taking care of her? A man being loyal and righteous is a good thing. Don't be so petty and push your husband away. They chattered back and forth, as if I were the heinous criminal. And Ethan, my former husband, just knelt on the ground. He didn't say a word for me. He just looked at me with a resentful yet innocent gaze. I trembled with anger, my chest feeling blocked by a wad of cotton. Fine. Really fine. This was the man I loved for 7 years, willing to bear children for, and his family. Life-saving grace? I sneered. From the file bag just delivered by my assistant, I pulled out a document and slammed it harshly on the coffee table. Open your dog eyes and see clearly. It was a detailed investigation report, attached with various evidence. My mother-in-law, illiterate, looked suspiciously at Ethan. Ethan picked it up with trembling hands, and after one glance, his face completely changed. I read it out word by word for him and everyone present. On March 15, 2014, at 8 p.m., Claire, through intermediary Victor, contacted truck driver Leo, paid a remuneration of 200,000 yuan, to stage an accidental car crash at the South City intersection. The requirement was a minor vehicle scrape, startling the target Ethan but ensuring no injury. Simultaneously, arrange for Vivian to pass by nearby coincidentally and perform a hero-saving beauty act. Inside are the transfer records to the intermediary and driver, chat screenshots, and the driver's handwritten testimony and fingerprint. I raised my eyes, staring at Ethan's ashen face. Do you want me to bring the driver here for a face-to-face confrontation? The entire living room was deathly silent. My mother-in-law and a relative's facial expressions were more colorful than a palette. They looked at the report, then at Ethan, finally landing terrified gazes on me. Ethan's legs went weak, and he completely collapsed on the ground. After a long time, he squeezed out 3 words through his teeth. Why? To test you. I looked down at him condescendingly, like watching a joke. I feared you loved my money, not me as a person. I wanted to know if a man, facing such an illusory moral shackle as a life-saving grace, would waver. And the result? I smiled, but tears flowed uncontrollably. You spent a full 7 years proving to me that you never loved me. What you loved was just the saintly illusion you imagined, self-sacrificing for others. The Shin family left like defeated roosters, slinking away. Before leaving, my mother-in-law still wanted to throw a fit, but was directly escorted out by the 2 black-clad bodyguards I called. In the living room, only I and the limp Ethan on the ground remained. He stared blankly at the paper scraps on the ground, muttering repeatedly, "Fake, all fake." "No, it's real." I corrected him coldly. "The car accident was real, Vivian pulling you from the car side was real. The only fake part was the director of this play, it was me. And you, Ethan, the lead actor, got too immersed in the role." I squatted down, staring into his vacant eyes. He suddenly raised his head, his bloodshot eyes burning with towering hatred. "Claire. Why did you do this? You destroyed my faith." "Your faith?" I scoffed. "Is your faith living off a woman's false grace? In these 7 years, every time you met Vivian, transferred money to her, argued with me because of her, you felt at ease because you thought you were repaying a debt. Now I tell you, what you repaid wasn't a benefactor, just an actress cooperating in my play. Your pitiful guilt instantly becomes worthless. Aren't you, in great pain?" My words were like a poisoned knife, cutting into his heart slash by slash. He hugged his head in agony, letting out a beast-like roar. My legal team arrived. The lead Daniel, the most renowned marriage law expert in the industry, expressionlessly placed a divorce agreement and a lawsuit on the table before Ethan. "Mr. Ethan, this is Ms. Claire's divorce agreement. Ms. Claire demands you leave with nothing and compensate for the mental damages caused during the marriage, 10 million yuan. Additionally, this is the court's lawsuit. We are formally suing you for negligent homicide. We demand compensation for your deceased daughter's death indemnity and funeral expenses, totaling 1.78 million yuan. Ethan raised his head, seeing those cold numbers, suddenly laughed maniacally, "Ha ha ha, over 10 million. Claire, you really think highly of me." He suddenly stood up from the ground, grabbed my collar, and slammed me against the wall. My head hit the hard wall with a thud. My vision instantly went black. You think I don't know? His face twisted in anger, veins bulging. You just despise me for being poor. Now you've found an opportunity to kick me away. You venomous woman. His strength was terrifying, his hand choking my neck like an iron clamp. My body, just having endured massive hemorrhage, was no match. The suffocation overwhelmed me instantly. Let her go. Daniel the lawyer and the bodyguards rushed forward. It took several people to pull the raging Ethan away. I leaned against the wall, gasping heavily, deep red marks left on my neck. Ethan was held down firmly by two bodyguards, still struggling and roaring. Claire. Don't think it's over like this. I tell you, I don't agree to the divorce. You'll never get rid of me in this life. I stroked my stinging neck, coughed a few times, then smiled. Ethan, have you forgotten? Who is the largest shareholder of that pharmaceutical company you're so proud of? His struggling movements suddenly stopped. I walked up to him, reached out, and straightened his disheveled collar. The action was gentle like soothing a lover. But my voice was ice-cold to the bone. Let me educate you. The Horway Pharmaceuticals where you work was fully acquired 3 years ago by a venture capital firm under our group. I, Claire, hold 51% absolute equity in Horway Pharmaceuticals. In other words, I'm your big boss. Guess how the company will handle an employee who, due to family disputes, negligently caused the death of his own daughter and assaulted his wife? I savored the expression as color drained inch by inch from his face, continuing, oh right, and your dear mother, and your myriad aunts and relatives. I had someone check their workplaces, the schools their children attend, even the vegetable market downstairs in the neighborhood, all have intricate connections to my Gu family's industries. Ethan, guess if I'm in a bad mood, what will happen to them? He completely stopped moving. Like a statue with its soul extracted, he stared at me with vacant eyes. Ethan was escorted out of my house by the bodyguards. He didn't throw any more fits. Just before leaving, he gave me a deep look with an expression I couldn't decipher, containing hate, fear, and a hint of pleading. I couldn't be bothered to distinguish. The next few days I would be very busy. First step, sue for divorce. In the face of absolute evidence and the strongest legal team, Ethan had no room to resist. The court supported all my claims. He left with nothing. Second step, freeze accounts, clean house. I not only froze all assets under his name but also had the legal department send a letter to Huawei Pharmaceuticals. On the grounds of severely damaging the company's reputation, he was fired. And pursued all gray income he obtained through his position over the years. Third step, Vivian. I had a private investigator check Vivian's so-called charity organization. This woman, under the halo of philanthropist, over the years used Ethan's connections in the pharmaceutical company to engage in large-scale charity fundraising. In reality, most of the donations went into her own pocket for buying Hermes and investing in overseas properties. The so-called aid recipients in her accounts were either fabricated out of thin air or given just a few hundred yuan in red envelopes, with photos taken for show on social media. She was the true award-winning actress. And Ethan was her biggest accomplice and ATM. The day I obtained all the evidence, I was handling my daughter's funeral arrangements. That small, cold urn was not even as big as my palm. Holding it, my heart felt like it was being cut by knives. My assistant told me Vivian was discharged, and Ethan was going to pick her up. The two were at the hospital entrance, surrounded by a group of reporters. Those were reporters Vivian had called herself, wanting to sell a wave of surviving ordeal, undying true love sob story to gain sympathy. I changed into a black long dress, holding my daughter's urn, and had the driver take me to the hospital. At the hospital entrance, it was indeed crowded. Vivian wore a white dress, pale-faced, weakly leaning in Ethan's arms. Ethan's leg was in a cast, leaning on crutches. I heard it was broken a couple of days ago when he was thrown out of my house, stumbling down the stairs in a daze. Truly karma. He protected Vivian like a hero, face full of guilt and tenderness. The reporter's flashes kept blinking. Mr. Ethan, I heard you abandoned transfusing blood to your wife to save Ms. Vivian, is that true? Ms. Vivian, what do you have to say about Mr. Ethan's choice? Vivian's eyes immediately reddened, her voice choking perfectly. I would rather the one who died was me. It's me who let down Sister Claire. It's me who destroyed their family. Her textbook-level green tea performance drew sympathy from many onlookers around. This girl is too pitiful, she almost lost her life, yet still thinking for others. That Claire is really something, her husband saved his benefactor, and she still makes a fuss about divorce, her heart is too ruthless. Exactly, what's wrong with a man being loyal and righteous? Ungrateful. At that moment, holding the urn, I walked through the noisy crowd, step by step to them. All sounds abruptly stopped. All lenses focused on me. Ethan saw me, his pupils contracting sharply, subconsciously protecting Vivian even tighter. Vivian, with a panicked face, shrank into his arms, timidly calling me, Sister Claire. I ignored them. I just held up the tablet my assistant had prepared long ago in front of all the lenses. Then, pressed play. On the screen appeared the surveillance footage from the corridor outside the delivery room, clearly recording everything that happened that day, the nurse's anxious urging, my mother-in-law's vicious shouts, and, the moment Ethan closed his eyes and resolutely signed Vivian's transfusion consent form. The whole scene erupted in uproar, the passers-by who had pointed at me earlier now couldn't say a word. Reporters frantically pressed their shutters. I turned off the video, my gaze landing on Vivian's deathly pale face. Ms. Vivian. I spoke softly, you just said you'd rather the one who died was you. Now, the opportunity has come. From my bag, I took out another document. It was the detailed accounts of Vivian's charity foundation and all evidence of her suspected fraud and embezzlement. Every entry in here is enough to keep you in prison for 10 years. Don't worry, I've already called the police. They should be on their way. Don't you like acting? Go to prison and act to your heart's content. Vivian completely panicked. She clung desperately to Ethan's arm, like grasping the last straw. Ethan! Save me! I don't want to go to jail. This is all a misunderstanding. Ethan was also stunned, he looked at the document in my hand, then at the shivering Vivian in his arms. Claire, you can't do this. Vivian didn't mean it. Didn't mean it? I laughed. Embezzling tens of millions in donations to buy Hermes, not intentional? Hiring people to forge medical records to scam donations, not intentional? Ethan, you're not only blind but stupid. Take a good look at what kind of person your life-saving benefactor really is. I flung the document copies at his face, papers scattering on the ground. The surrounding reporters and passers-by exploded. My God! Fraud? This woman looks so innocent. You know the face but not the heart, using others' life-saving money to buy bags, too vicious. Serves her right. Hurry and arrest her. Public opinion reversed instantly. The first love who had just been pitted by all turned into a fraudster everyone despised. Sirens approached from afar. Vivian was scared out of her wits, she pushed Ethan away, turned to run. My bodyguards immediately stepped forward, flanking her and holding her. Let me go. Let me go. She struggled madly, screaming, her meticulously made-up face becoming twisted and ugly. Ethan, on crutches, tried to help but was jostled by the angry crowd. The police arrived quickly, after reviewing the evidence I provided, handcuffed Vivian on the spot with cold cuffs. Vivian completely broke down. Disheveled, makeup smeared from crying, she roared at Ethan, Ethan! You useless trash! Didn't you say you'd protect me for life? You're just watching them arrest me? I tell you. I became like this because of you. It's you. You deserve it. I watched coldly as she was escorted into the police car. Ethan stood dazed, watching the police car drive away. Reporters surrounded him again, microphones aimed at him. Mr. Ethan, were you aware of Ms. Vivian's suspected fraud? As one of her guarantors, will you be implicated? You chose to abandon your wife and now betrayed by your first love, what are your thoughts? Question after question stabbed at him like knives. His face was deathly pale, unable to say a word, finally tumbling embarrassingly to the ground amid the crowd's pushing. No one helped him, all looked at him with contempt and mockery. Holding my daughter's urn, I turned and left. This farce should end. Back home, I received an unexpected call. It was from the head nurse who delivered my baby, her voice full of guilt and unease. Ms. Claire, sorry, there's something I think I must tell you. It's about your daughter's death. We've discovered some new circumstances. Her death report may have been tampered with. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. I clenched my fist tightly, nails digging into my palm, feeling no pain. Say that again. From the head nurse came suppressed sobs. Ms. Claire, we didn't know, we really didn't. Your daughter's death report, we reviewed the original records. The initial diagnosis was only mild hypoxia, vital signs stable. With timely care, she could have fully recovered. But the final issued death report listed the cause as severe asphyxiation leading to multiple organ failure. We checked the duty records and surveillance that night. It was a nurse and the attending doctor who modified the report. That nurse resigned voluntarily yesterday and can't be contacted now. And in that attending doctor's account, on the night your daughter was declared dead, received an anonymous transfer of 500,000 yuan. My hands and feet went ice cold. No need for more words. I understood everything. Vivian. It was Vivian again. She not only stole the blood meant to save my life. She also bribed the nurse and doctor, personally tampering with my daughter's death report. What she wanted wasn't just Ethan's choice. What she wanted was my daughter must die. She wanted me to live forever in the pain of losing a daughter and hatred for Ethan, never at peace. How vicious this woman was. Ms. Claire, we also found out something else. The head nurse took a deep breath, her voice trembling. We asked the nurse who transfused Vivian. She admitted. Vivian's car accident injuries were very minor, no need for transfusion at all. It was Vivian herself, using your husband Ethan's name, threatening her to transfuse immediately. Otherwise, she'd make her unable to stay in the hospital. The bag of life-saving blood your husband prepared for you was forcibly taken by Vivian. The phone slipped from my hand, falling silently on the carpet. I covered my mouth, unable to make any sound, only tears surging like broken beads. So, Ethan never truly faced a choose-one dilemma. That so-called life and death choice was, from start to end, a scam meticulously designed by Vivian. She exploited Ethan's stupidity and guilt, directing this tragedy that destroyed my family. And Ethan, the man I once deeply loved. He was not only an accomplice but the most crucial, most foolish pawn in this murder. I don't know how long I cried. Until Daniel the lawyer knocked and entered, bringing news that shocked me even more. Ms. Claire, when the police were organizing Vivian's case materials, they interrogated her assistant. To reduce her sentence, the assistant confessed everything. 10 years ago, in that car accident, Vivian self-directed and added drama on the basis you planned. You originally just wanted to test Mr. Ethan, the money paid was only for the driver to create a minor scrape. But Vivian, she gave the driver another sum to accelerate and really crash. That's why she was truly injured, leading to the so-called life-saving grace later. From the beginning, her approach to Ethan was a thorough extortion scheme. I felt my worldview shattered repeatedly and reorganized within this one day. I thought I had seen all the ugliness of human nature. Unexpectedly, Vivian's evil far exceeded my imagination. She spent 10 years laying a massive trap, calculating me, Ethan, and my deceased daughter into it. I picked up the phone and dialed Ethan's number. He answered almost instantly, his voice full of fatigue and humble pleading. Claire, is it you? Listen to my explanation, Vivian, and I really... Ethan. I interrupted him, you have half an hour, get over here. I have some things to show you. Ethan arrived quickly. His leg still in cast, limping, forehead full of cold sweat. Seeing me, his dead eyes burst with hopeful light. Claire, you're willing to see me? Are you willing to forgive me? I didn't speak, just tossed several documents in front of him like garbage. The first was evidence of Vivian embezzling donations. The second was confessions and transfer records of Vivian bribing the nurse and doctor to tamper with my daughter's death report. The third was the full truth of how she self-directed and maliciously extorted in the car accident 10 years ago. Ethan's gaze scanned the documents one by one. The color on his face faded bit by bit. From shock, to confusion, to disbelief. Finally, he was completely dumbfounded. Slumped on the sofa, his eyes vacant like a puppet. "No, impossible, this isn't real," he muttered to himself, shaking his head repeatedly. "The first love you guarded for 10 years. I looked at him coldly, was actually a downright fraudster and murderer. Your so-called life-saving grace was a scam from start to end. For this con artist, you abandoned your wife. Killed your daughter." With each word I said, his face grew paler. "Ethan, how do you feel now?" I walked up to him, staring intently. "Don't you feel like the stupidest fool in the world?" He suddenly lifted his head, his bloodshot eyes glaring fiercely at me. Then, he began madly tearing his hair, pounding his chest. He cried. Cried more heartbreakingly, more desperately than when holding Vivian outside the delivery room. But watching him, my heart had no ripple. Too late, everything was too late. If his tears could bring back my daughter's life, I might be moved. But now, his repentance, in my view, was just a belated, cheap self-indulgence. After crying enough, he crawled on his knees to my feet, grabbing my skirt. "Claire. I was wrong. I really was wrong. I'm worse than pigs and dogs. I'm not human." He began slapping his face madly, each slap harder. Soon his face swelled like a pig's head. "Hit me, curse me. As long as you forgive me, can we start over? Let's have another child." Slap. I finally couldn't hold back. Using all my strength, I slapped him hard across the face. "Child?" I pointed at the small urn on the table, my voice trembling. "Tell me, what can you use to give me back a child?" "Ethan, listen well. From the moment you signed that consent form, between us, only hatred remains." I shook off his hand and stood up. "My lawyer will submit these new evidences to the police. Vivian's charges will add one more, intentional homicide. As for you," I looked down at him condescendingly, "for the rest of your life, embrace your guilt toward me and your ridiculous love, and go to hell together." I gave him no more chance to speak, turned, and went back to the room. Outside the door came his heart-wrenching cries and pleas. I ignored them. That night, I took my daughter's ashes and boarded a flight abroad. I left him a letter, pressed under our former wedding photo. The letter had only a few sentences. "Ethan, outside the delivery room, you had two choices, you chose her. Now, I give you two choices. First, spend the rest of your life repenting for the biological daughter you killed. Second, forget everything, pretend you never missed anything. I think you're very good at the second kind." Vivian's case shocked the nation. Fraud, embezzlement, intentional injury, instigation, indirect intentional homicide. Multiple crimes punished together, she was sentenced to life imprisonment. I heard in court, she went completely mad, biting anyone she saw, incessantly cursing me and Ethan. And Ethan became the laughingstock of the city. The ultimate stupid man, deceived by his first love, causing the death of his own daughter. He lost his job, reputation ruined, all relatives and friends avoided him. He wanted to win me back. Crazily calling me, messaging, even chasing to abroad. I saw him in the news, kneeling long before the GU Group's overseas branch, begging to see me. In the photo, he was haggard, emaciated beyond recognition. I just glanced and closed the page. My life turned a new page. 3 years later, I formally took over the GU Group. With iron-fisted style and precise business acumen, in just 3 years, I led the group's market value to double. My name appeared on the Forbes list of global female entrepreneurs. I adopted 3 orphans. One girl, I named her Stella. they all call me Mom. My life is busy but fulfilling. Suitors are never lacking around me, but I've never thought of remarrying. Once is enough. Ethan didn't come looking for me again. I heard after Vivian was imprisoned, he visited every week, rain or shine. He seemed to want to find a thread of reason to live from that mad woman. He guarded her for 2 years. 2 years later, Vivian completely lost her mind in prison and was sent to a mental hospital. Ethan visited her once, and after returning, completely broke down. He started turning back to find me. But he discovered, in my world, there was no place for him anymore. This time I returned to the country to attend a business summit. After it ended, I went to sweep my daughter's tomb. Before the tombstone, I saw a familiar yet strange figure. It was Ethan. Unseen for 3 years, he had aged greatly, hair mostly white, back hunched. Seeing me and the young handsome partner beside me, his body swayed, almost unable to stand. "Claire." His voice was hoarse like a broken gong. The man beside me politely blocked in front of me, watching him warily. I shook my head, indicating it's fine, and walked to the tombstone, placing the fresh bundle of daisies. On the photo was a baby smile I had never seen, computer synthesized. That was my star. If Ethan behind me struggled to speak, if we could do it over. There is no if. I interrupted him without turning back. The second you signed, our lives had already gone to different endings. You chose to let her live. And I chose to let you die. Ethan, in my heart. You died 3 years ago, along with my daughter. I stood up, took one last look at the photo on the tombstone, my voice light as a breeze. I didn't glance at him again, linked arms with the man beside me, and turned to leave. Behind me came a muffled sound of knees hitting the ground. In my entire world, he knelt long without rising. But what did that have to do with me?